Hi there, this is Brandy M. Miller, and my dear friend Kathy asked me to do a reacts video to a video she recorded with her friend Anne called Anne's Right to Be a Mother or Not. Now, I don't normally do this way, but because of the content of that video, I wanted to be very considerate to Anne and to all the people watching. So I took a little time to write out my thoughts. In 50 seconds into the video, Anne says people do what's best for them at the time. And that's what abortion is in a nutshell. It's making a permanent decision for whether or not someone else gets to live based on a set of temporary circumstances. Where you are in life can change at any given moment. Terminate the baby today, you could win the lottery tomorrow, and all your reasons for not having that baby go out the window. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't have a crystal ball into the future. So choosing to abort, it doesn't just, it's a crazy thing to do in reality. Now, at 1 minute and 15 seconds, she said back in the 70s, if it had not been available, meaning abortion, if not, abortion had not been available, I didn't have support from anyone. I knew that for the child, it would be better because I wasn't ready to have a baby. Now, I know what it's like to be pregnant and have no support and to not feel ready for the child that you find out you're carrying. I was 19 years old when I conceived my son. And within less than 6 weeks after finding out I was pregnant, I was homeless. I wasn't really married. I was to my husband. I was common law married because we claimed marriage, but we hadn't even filed the paperwork. The baby, my husband didn't want the baby. He didn't feel ready for the baby. He was terrified of being a father. Everyone was telling us that we weren't ready to be parents. And I agonized over the future, and I wondered if I'd ever be able to give the child the kind of life I wanted that child to have. People close to me thought I should have an abortion. My grandfather, who was like a father to me, literally walked me around the property and asked me if I wouldn't consider an abortion. And I don't know, I couldn't do that. Other people thought I should just give the child up for adoption. Like that would just be easy. Like it's easy to hand off your offspring to somebody else's care. There's only one person other than me who believed in my capability to be a mother, and that was my mother. And my mother and I didn't have a good relationship, so very rare for me to feel supported by her at all. But she's the one who told me that giving up my brother for adoption had been the hardest thing she'd ever done, and she lived with the consequences of that decision every single day of her life, wondering if he was okay, wondering if he was taken care of. Adoption's not an easy choice. Make no bones about that. It takes courage to face up to the responsibility when you don't feel ready for it, and to take ownership of the situation when you don't feel capable of taking ownership. It takes faith that you'll find a better way when you don't see a way. And it takes hope that the future before you will be better than the future you face right now. I think the abortion epidemic will end when we begin empowering women to believe that they are capable of more than they think they're capable of doing, to have faith that they can find a way when a way doesn't seem present to them, and to have hope that the baby they carry will bring a future that is better than the one they could have had without that child. In 1 minute, 28 seconds, she says it was life-changing. Well, yes, it definitely was. It changed the life of her child from alive to dead. And it didn't make her not a mother. She's just a mother of a child that's dead now, instead of a mother of a child that's alive and living and supporting her and bringing joy to her life. And for that, I weep for both of them. Taking someone's life is life-changing for all parties involved. Just ask any soldier who's been to war. As much as abortion providers tell a woman she won't feel the impact of that decision, the truth is that choosing an abortion is going to change your life in ways you never imagined. And I'm not saying that all of those changes will be bad, but I am saying that it's going to rob you of something greater that you could have had. At 1 minute 38 seconds, she says, I think whatever's going to happen in God's world will happen no matter what. Well, this is my answer to that. According to Matthew 18:14, your Father in heaven is not willing that any of these little ones should perish. Death is not God's desire for the lives he creates. It's always a result of sin. Death didn't enter the picture until after the fall of Adam and Eve. In fact, in Deuteronomy 30:15, God tells us he is giving us a choice. Now listen, today I'm giving you a choice between life and death, between prosperity and disaster. God's way always leads to life and abundance because it always leads to love. God allows us to make choices because love has to be a choice you make. It can't be forced upon you. And his ultimate goal for every life is that we choose love. So he's never going to take away or interfere with your choices, even when those choices lead to someone else's destruction. Because to do so at the last minute would be to interfere with your ability to choose love in that last second instead of death. And what he does promise us is that as someone else chooses to do evil to us, he will turn that evil to our good and make it work for us instead of against us. Romans 8:28 tells us we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. That baby that God allowed to be conceived in you was put there as a sign of his love for you and his promise of a future that was greater than what you were facing right then, and his belief in your capability to do the job. You didn't understand what he was doing, and so instead of embracing that love and that future, you destroyed it. But be assured that just because you made the wrong choice then doesn't mean that God can't take that past negative action and turn it into a powerful positive force in this world. That's what he specializes in doing. He took the world's greatest negative action, the crucifixion and death of his son, and he turned it into an everlasting sign of hope for those who heed its call. He used that negative to build a bridge that will connect us all to the ultimate source of love if we let it. So at 1 minute 38 seconds, she says, people who are pro-life, they want you to have a baby and take care of it and all that other stuff when they know that you're not ready. When you don't have the resources, and even adoption and foster care is not a guarantee situation where they're going to be good people who take care and love and nurture your child. You see that all the time. There's abuse and neglect. Okay, there's a lot to unpack in this statement. First, yes, we do. Pro-life people want you to step up and take care of the baby you conceived. That's what they're asking you to do. They are asking for you to accept the responsibility for the life you created. They know it's not easy, but they also know it's going to ultimately be what's best for you and that child. You're never going to be ready to be a parent. Even when you think you're ready, you're not ready. Any more than you can truly be ready for marriage or for being a business owner or any other position of responsibility in life. You can think you're ready, but the minute you meet the realities of what's involved, you'll discover just how inadequate your preparations have been. There's a reason for that. Parenthood, marriage, entrepreneurship, and leadership are all things which are designed to push you to grow in areas you didn't even know you needed to grow. They will challenge you on levels that nothing else in life ever will. You're never going to be ready. You simply have to decide to step up and claim that responsibility being thrust your way in spite of your feelings, in spite of how you feel. Step up and say yes. Some people do start off with access to more economic resources than other people do, but your lack of economic resources doesn't make you unfit for duty or incapable of stepping up to the task at hand. Your lack of resources means you need to become more resourceful. It's a challenge to you to learn how to take what you have and make it work. It's a learning process, and sometimes you're going to fail, but you will get better at it as over time. And also, by the end of the statement, she makes it clear that while she knew his adoption was an option, she deliberately chose not to pursue that option. She chose death for her child over life because she couldn't guarantee the outcome. But none of us can. You can have a perfectly healthy kid, all the money in the world, all the resources, all the everything that's needed, that's thought to be needed today, and lose it tomorrow. You can have two fabulous parents and one of them dies. The situations and circumstances are never going to be perfect, and waiting until they are means that we are never going to have children. And that means that our society will die out. Our species will die out. Reproduction is our future. And finally, let's talk about abuse and neglect being reasons to abort, because I hear this all the time and it really bugs me. I was badly abused and neglected as a child. I grew up into an emotionally scarred teenager who was seeking love in the bedroom, which is how I came to be pregnant at the age of 19. Okay? But my scars, my emotional scars, may not have made me a great parent in the beginning, but that didn't mean I didn't have the ability to become a better parent as I went along. And that didn't mean that I didn't have the ability to heal. In fact, my son was part of what took for me to heal from all that emotional wounds. My son's love for me and my love for him pushed me to make changes I would never have found the courage to make otherwise. And I grew and I flourished because of his presence in my life. I healed because of him, not in spite of him. Abuse and neglect are not reasons to kill somebody. People can heal from abuse and neglect and go on to become better people. But they can't heal from death. Killing somebody is a very, very final solution. When you choose to take somebody's life, there's no going back. There's no walking yourself back from that choice. There's no hope for a future because you killed the future. So using abuse and neglect as excuses to terminate a pregnancy is not a really good excuse, not in my view. I'm glad my mother chose to give birth to me, even if she wasn't a great mother, even if she wasn't the perfect mother. She was the perfect mother for me and to help me become the person I eventually became. And I like who I am. And I wouldn't trade all the things that happened to me for the world, because those are part of what made me who I am today. No true hero starts off a hero. They start off as an underdog and they build to being a hero. So don't write off those kids who are going to face abuse and neglect before they've had a chance to write their own story. Don't close their chapter before they've had a chance to make a sentence in it. Give them a chance. You never know what great things will come out of what bad things happen in life. All right, at 2 minutes and 26 seconds, she says, so I chose for my child to terminate. Then I should be able to do so because I'm choosing to do what's best for the both of us. All right. I can understand how a woman can get to this place where she sees killing her own child as doing the best for both of you. I was 23 years old, unhappily married at the time, and my husband had just come home to tell me that he'd been fired from a job it had taken him over a year and a half to get. I lost every ounce of hope in that moment. All I could see was a future filled with misery and unhappiness and financial struggles and pain. And I was tired of pain. I'd had a lot of it in my life. I looked around at every adult I knew older than me and nobody was doing great. And I thought to myself, if this is all there is to life, why continue on? I began seriously contemplating suicide, and then the thought of who would take care of my son when I was gone popped into my head, and I couldn't see anybody I would trust to love him or care for him. And suddenly I thought, well, if I'm not willing to live in this world, then I shouldn't make him live here either. I figured he'd be better off in heaven, and I'm fortunate though. The thought of actively taking my own son's life was enough to snap me out of things, and it horrified me enough to decide that was not going to be our future. But I do understand getting to that place in life where you sincerely believe that taking your own child's life is the only way to ensure they have a better future. However, I think that goes right back to the fact that we need to be empowering women to believe that they can create better futures for their children, no matter how dark the circumstances may look today to give them hope and tools for a better tomorrow, and to encourage them to have faith in their own abilities and resourcefulness. Abortion does nothing to empower women. It keeps them believing that they are powerless to do greater things, keeps them believing that death is their only answer to the challenges of life, and it prevents them from experiencing the growth that comes when you find the courage to do for someone else what you would never have the courage to do for yourself. At 3 minutes and 31 seconds, my friend Kathy says, I like it when you say that if you're an anti-abortionist, you should be obligated to adopt. As for why more pro-life families like mine do not adopt, obviously neither Kathy nor her friend Anne have ever tried to adopt a child. They don't realize the tremendous hurdles that get put in the way of families who would otherwise happily adopt lots of children. It can cost as much as $40,000 for a single adoption. You have to meet income requirements and credit checks. There are home environment checks where if the state perceives that your home isn't big enough or suitable enough for a child, you will be denied the ability to adopt. It isn't as simple as signing up and getting a kid, because if it were, I'd probably have a dozen. What I've done instead is take kids in off the streets and try to help them get back on track. A lot of homeless kids you see are kids who transitioned out of the foster care system and now have neither life skills nor a diploma to even help them start out in life. So I do what I can within the limitations imposed on me by the government. Plus, by her own admission earlier, even if there had been 12 families standing by, eagerly waiting to adopt, Anne would still have chosen to terminate because there was no way for her to guarantee the child wouldn't be abused, neglected, or mistreated by those families. In other words, Anne couldn't predict the future, so she chose no future for her child. At 3 minutes and 58 seconds, Kathy says, your position is then that as the mother of the child, you have the right to make the decision that you feel is in the best interest of yourself and your child. As I stated earlier, I can understand how a woman can get to a place in her life where she's so devoid of hope for her future that she says the best thing and most merciful thing she can do for her child is to end its life. But that doesn't make her decision the right one. That means she needs help, okay? Furthermore, the stance that this decision belongs solely to one woman is something I challenge strongly. That child is destined to impact far more lives than just the mother's. There are grandparents and fathers and siblings and a whole world of people whose lives would have been impacted by that child. We don't put to death a born person without first giving them a trial before a jury of their peers and a person who will speak on their behalf. Why should a child in the womb warrant less consideration? Last, at 5 minutes and 15 seconds, Kathy says, until we have a society where men and women are equally engaged in the consequences of their sexual behavior, then women must have that right. I say if women want to be taken seriously as leaders, we can't wait for men to do the right thing before we do the right thing. We need to set the example by doing the right thing regardless of what men do. Executing our children because men aren't doing the right thing is not empowering women to be leaders. It's encouraging them to follow the example of men who are terrible leaders. And that will lead to death every time, not just for the child, but for our society as a whole. Women, it is up to us. If we want change, it starts with us. And that is my reaction to the video that's done by Kathy called Anne's Right to Be a Mother or Not. I hope you found this video insightful. If you did, please like and subscribe. And if you thought maybe somebody could benefit from hearing the words that I've had to say, I encourage you to share. I also encourage you to go over to What Kathy Thinks in her channel to watch that video yourself and then like and subscribe her channel. She's got a lot of interesting things she talks about, and I know she's going to add value to your day. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.